Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team half-PPR mock draft from the 8th overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. The roster positions for today's mock are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 1 flex, a kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. We're going to be drafting up against the expert consensus rankings on FantasyPros, as well as the composite ADP from Yahoo, RT Sports, as well as Sleeper. But before we can get on into this mock draft, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 12-team half-PPR mock draft from the 8th overall spot. So the draft begins with Justin Jefferson, followed by Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Saquon Barkley, and Travis Kelce. In a half-PPR league, it makes a lot more sense for a guy like Austin Eckler to go at the 3rd pick, like Saquon Barkley to go at the 6th overall pick, compared to a full PPR league, because these running backs have a lot more value in a half-PPR league compared to a full PPR league, especially when you're drafting them this early. So looking at the best players available here, for me, it is kind of a no-brainer to go with Bijan Robinson at this spot. Now, it is definitely very close between him and Cooper Kupp, but in a half PPR format, I am going to lean with the running back here. I think Bijan Mustardson himself, Bijan Robinson, is going to have the upside to finish as the RB1 in fantasy football this season. I think he is going to see a shit ton of carries week in and week out, and this is going to be, yet again, one of the most run-heavy offenses in the National Football League. So after we go with Bijan Robinson, Cooper Kupp, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Tony Pollard, Stephon Diggs, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, CeeDee Lamb, and A.J. Brown. So we have a pretty big question to be answered right here. Are we comfortable drafting Jonathan Taylor at the 2.05 with the information that we have right now? Now, the most recent information from last night was that the Miami Dolphins sent the Indianapolis Colts a trade offer for Jonathan Taylor. We don't know the components of that trade, but the Indianapolis Colts didn't like it. They didn't accept it. But the report after that said that while the trade request was declined, they didn't like that trade, they are working things through, right? They are trying to make things work for him to go to Miami. If Jonathan Taylor goes to the Miami Dolphins, he is a Hulk smash pick at the 2.05. Mike McDaniel is a run game guru. Jonathan Taylor would be the workhorse running back on this team. It would absolutely destroy the value of Mostert, A-Chain, and Jeff Wilson unless one of them gets traded to Indy in the trade. Then one of them might actually move up in terms of ADP because they could be the RB1 in Indianapolis. But there are a lot of question marks with this. Is it guaranteed to be Miami? No. And based upon what Ian Rappaport was talking about, if Jonathan Taylor's back on the Colts and they don't make a move by Tuesday, which is the deadline the Colts set on Jonathan Taylor, it seems like Jonathan Taylor's probably not going to play. It really does seem like, based upon what Rappaport was saying, that the relationship between the Indianapolis Colts and Jonathan Taylor is fucking broken half. It is completely tarnished. So if Jonathan Taylor doesn't get traded, we could end up actually seeing a holdout, which, if you asked me a couple weeks ago, I probably would have not really believed you. So Jonathan Taylor right now is a huge risk. Now, if he goes to Miami, we're going to look like geniuses drafting at the 205, but right now, there's just a little too much risk in it, right? We don't know what team he's going to go to, and we don't even know if he will end up getting traded. All the quarterbacks still available, but we ain't going quarterback this early. At the 2.05, there are just too many good players still available to be selected for me to want to go for Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Jalen Hurts. I love Mark Andrews as much as the next guy. I'm a huge fan of Mark Andrews. I think in the Todd Monken system, where he loves the tight ends. I mean, who doesn't love a good old tight end? I think Mark Andrews is going to be huge this year, but the problem is I don't want to take him in the 2nd round. If he falls to us in the 3rd round, that would be a wet dream, though. But based upon where we're picking, normally he goes from around the 301 to the 304. So if he comes back to the 308, it would be pretty shocking. So we're up on the clock here. Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, best players available. Amon-Ra did end up injuring his ankle, but it doesn't appear to be anything serious, like it was going to hold him out for potential games this season. Same shit happened to Devontae Adams. He ended up getting hurt. He had a leg injury, but he was back to practice last week, so there really is no worry about either of those guys. So really is a pick your poison. For me, I prefer Davante Adams over Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think people are wildly discounting Davante Adams this season, despite the fact that this guy dominated last year with not great quarterback play, right? Derek Carr last year was not good. He even dominated when they put the backup in. When they got tired of Derek Carr, they put another schlub in to play quarterback, and guess what? Davante Adams was still bending defenses over a table. I fully expect Davante Adams to continue to dominate the landscape of the NFL as a wide receiver. After Adams, we see Amon-Ra St. Brown, his teammate Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson, Pat Mahomes, Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Waddle, Josh Allen, Ramondre Stevenson, Mark Andrews, Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, and Aaron Jones. Again, this is a half PPR league, so the running backs are going to be coming off the board fast and furious. In full PPR, there would be way more receivers off the board already, right? If Chris Olave was available at the 3.08 in a full PPR league, you would probably cream your pants. So we're up on the clock here. We got Bijan and Davante Adams. Looking at the running backs in this range, there's a lot of risk. Breece Hall, before Le'Veon Bell came there, I was ecstatic for Breece Hall, but now we have Dalvin Cook there, and I might have said Le'Veon Bell for some reason, but maybe I didn't. But Dalvin Cook is there, and that is going to be an issue for Breece Hall. Breece Hall's already coming into the season injured. I genuinely think for the first couple of games, they might look to kind of ease Breece Hall in, right? I talk about this a lot. Use the just the tip technique, right? Kind of ease him in there. Maybe he doesn't play a lot of the snaps the first couple of games, and if you're drafting him in the third round, you need him to play there. Now, if you miss him for the first couple games and he goes in the fifth round, sure, I'm all ears to that argument, because the Jets are going to be good. Their defense is good, so they're going to be able to run the rock a lot. But the fact that he is coming into the season banged up, I think they're going to use not Le'Veon Bell, I fucking said that like 50 times, use Dalvin Cook more than people would actually like, and it's just a gross selection in the third round. Kenneth Walker, Miles Sanders, all of these guys, at a certain point, they're fine to draft, but not in the third round. So we're looking to go wide receiver yet again here. Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, Higgins, and DK Metcalf, best receivers available. I really do believe that Chris Olave is a pretty big risk in fantasy football this year, because if Michael Thomas stays healthy, I think that could severely hurt Chris Olave. We heard Derek Carr a couple of days ago talk about how much he loves Michael Thomas. Now, again, does that mean that Chris Olave is going to be a bust? No, but it feels a little uncomfortable, because if Michael Thomas doesn't get hurt 3 fucking games into the season, then Chris Olave might be in trouble. So we're going to go with Devontae Smith here. Sure, he is the wide receiver number 2 on the Philadelphia Eagles, but I like to think of it as a 1A, 1B, right? A.J. Brown, 1A, Devontae Smith, 1B. I think Devontae Smith is an extremely talented wide receiver, obviously highly acclaimed out of college, won the fucking Heisman Trophy as a wide receiver. Sure, he's built like a fucking 7th grader because he's real skinny, but he's real quick with it. He's on a great offense, and he is a big target for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And again, this is going to be a great offense. Yet again, they're going to be raining points down on the defense. So I expect Devontae Smith to be a really solid player. Obviously, a solid player for our fantasy team. After Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, Higgins, J.K. Dobbins, Alexander Mattison, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Kenneth Walker III, and Breece Hall. Even in the 4th round for Breece Hall, it feels a little bit gross. So while earlier on in the offseason, I would just wait and pray to the fantasy football gods above that Lamar Jackson fell back to us in the 5th round. It really does feel like this season, if you want Lamar Jackson, you are going to have to pay the price in the 4th round. There sometimes will be leagues where Burrow goes ahead of him. Maybe some crazy motherfuckers named Ice Cube go with Justin Herbert ahead of Lamar Jackson, because for some reason people are just scared to draft Lamar because of his injury history. At the end of the day, we talked about Todd Monken before. This could be a more pass-heavy offense, but Lamar is still going to be given the upside to cook. I really do believe he could be the quarterback 1 at the end of the season. The rushing upside is so important, and to me, in the 4th round, he is a no-brainer pick. And at this point in the summer, as we're nearing late August, it's August 25th as you're watching this, it really does feel like if you want Justin Fields as well, if you sit and wait until the 5th round, a lot of the time he won't even be there. Now, obviously, the quarterback position really changes from draft to draft, right? From league to league. If you are in a league with players that are more lenient on quarterbacks, maybe you won't see Mahomes and Hurts go in the second round. Maybe they go in the third round. But I really do think that if you want to get that quarterback, get one of those quarterbacks that you think have elite upside, you are going to have to pay a pretty penny for it. In years prior, no one wanted to take quarterbacks early, me included, but this year it really does feel like getting one of these elite quarterbacks is going to help you out a ton. I think Lamar Jackson could be an elite quarterback in the NFL this year. Plus, he has his best wide receiver core yet, Zay Flowers, Rashad Master Bateman, and Odell Beckham Jr. After we went with Lamar Jackson, Keenan Allen, Wiki, DJ Moore, Miles Sanders, Debo Samuel, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, Amari Cooper, TJ Hawkinson. The fifth opens with Damian Pierce, George Kittle, Me Timbers, Terry McLaurin, Cam Akers, James Conner, DeAndre Hopkins, as well as Christian Watson. I read a thing that scares me a little bit. Cam Akers' backup, Kyron Williams, has been playing kind of well. Little scary for Cam Akers. Going to be catching some passes. Now, I still think Cam Akers is the guy, but maybe he's not as much of a workhorse running back as I originally thought. Now, there has been no reporting on Rachaad White, except for the fact that I read today, or yesterday, as you guys are watching this because I recorded the night before, that the other running back, Sean Tucker the fucker, rookie, is mixing in with Rachaad White as the number one back, right, on the kind of first team reps with the offense, which tells you, while all offseason, everyone was getting down on their knees and fucking stroking the cock of Rachaad White, metaphorically, they were giving him the gawk 9,000 because, oh my God, he's going to see all the touches in this fucking backfield. How could he be bad even if the Bucs suck ass? Well, guess what, pal? Sean Tucker is coming to fuck everything up. He's coming. And any Rachaad White truthers, I was not one, should start to get a little bit nervous. We are now in the fifth round. Our team, Lamar Jackson, Bijan Robinson, Devontae Adams, and Devontae Smith. I love Darren Waller this season, but a lot of the time, if I'm being honest with you, in a 12-team league, if I pay the pretty penny for a quarterback, I'm not going to go for one of the upper echelon tight ends. If I draft an upper echelon tight end, I'm probably not being actively looking for one of those upper tier quarterbacks. Now, if there's value, if they fall to me, for instance, if I don't draft Waller here, the 6th round shows up and Darren Waller's still there, then I would take him, right? Because I believe that is a value. He should go in the 5th round. I get him in the 6th round. But if we're taking him where he normally goes, right? At this point, Darren Waller is a 5th round pick. His ADP on here is pick 59, so just 3 picks after us. So we're getting fair value on him, right? If you want to draft him, you can. But since we took Lamar Jackson, I think I'd rather go either wide receiver or running back here. At this point, I feel like a running back will end up falling back to me. A lot of these teams in front of me have drafted a bunch of running backs. 3 of these teams already have 3 running backs on their squad. The thing is, 2 of these teams only have 1. So it's very likely that at least 2 running backs come off the board before we get to pick again, which is why you want to use the draft board in your fantasy football drafts. If you play on ESPN, guess what? You're shit out of luck because the developers there don't give a shit about you and they don't give you a draft board. But on a lot of these platforms, there's a draft board. You need to use it if you can. It will help you out a ton to predict what's going to happen in the draft. Are you going to be right 100% of the time? No, there are people who go fucking rogue and draft a kicker in the 5th round or something like that, but that's not going to be the usual, obviously. So we're up here. The question is, do we believe James Cook is worthy of a 5th round pick? I love James Cook, but at pick 56, it just feels wrong. It feels dirty, so I'm going to wait. I am going to hold out. I might get bent over a table here, and my RB2 might end up being Isaiah Pacheco, and it might stink. It might reek a little bit, but I'm willing to take that shot here because I just don't think James Cook is worth pick 56. Again, I'm one of the biggest James Cook fans, but there's still the looming possibility, looming right over us like a thief in the night, right? That James Cook ends up getting cucked by Mr. Jonathan Taylor, Adam 22 style, so I'm a little bit scared. Jerry Jeudy hurt. I fell to my knees in a Walmart learning that he is expected to miss several weeks. Talk about this a bunch. Don't chase injuries in fantasy football. This does not look good. Now, again, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, but this is a scary situation. This does give a bump to Marvin Mims, gives a bump to Cortland Sutton as well. If you guys have enjoyed thus far, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button down below. This is going to give us Drizzy Drake London. Drake London is definitely far from a safe pick. I think the Atlanta Falcons, and the problem is, though, we can't take Drake London because we already have Bijan Robinson. And while I like the Atlanta Falcons offense this year, it feels very gross to week in and week out have to start two guys from the Atlanta Falcons on your team. I think Desmond Ridder steps up, but just not for me here. So we're going to end up just going with Darren Waller. Again, normally I don't start my teams with a quarterback and a tight end in the first 5 rounds, but we will experiment here, getting Darren Waller at ADP here. The Giants are heavily invested in this guy. We have seen him get so many targets in preseason, in training camp. This guy is dominating in the red zone. I had to pause it right there and just fast forward through because I had a seizure seeing the fact that Khalil Herbert went in the 5th round. He's one of my favorite draft picks, one of my favorite value running backs, but not in the 5th round. After that, we see Darren Waller, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, the pervert, Christian Kirk, Khalil Herbert, Dak Prescott, Dallas Goedert, Rashad White, and David Montgomery. So James Cook is available to us here. It says it's kind of a reach based upon ADP, even though there is the risk of the fact that Jonathan Taylor shows up there. I think at this point, it is a lot more likely that Jonathan Taylor ends up on the Miami Dolphins compared to the Buffalo Bills. James Cook appears to be the locked and loaded running back one. I know Josh Allen in the past hasn't been a guy that dumps the ball off a ton, but I think this year they're going to try to work James Cook in a ton, make him a bigger part of this offense. Now that Devin Singletary is gone in Houston, I think James Cook should have a pretty decent season, and this guy was one of the most efficient running backs last season. Yards per carry, yards per touch, just dominating in those categories, which are obviously very important for a running back's success. After James Cook, Trevor Lawrence, Kyle Pitts, Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Swift, Jerry Jeudy, Drake London, Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt, Isaiah Pacheco, Javonte Williams, Mike Williams, back-to-back Williams, Alvin Kamara, Brandon Cooks, Tua Tagovailoa, and A.J. Dillon back up on the clock here. All of the quarterbacks are gone. If you didn't take a quarterback early, you are left out to dry, and it is only the 7th round. And like I talked about it, some rooms, some drafts, going to be way more quarterback heavy than others. That's why I also think it's important to, if you've been in this league for a while, go back in the history book and look at, hey, how did the draft go last year? Were there a lot of quarterbacks going in the middle rounds? Because while people might change their strategy, a lot of the time, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? They keep doing the same shit every single year, and that's why it's more likely that even in full PPR leagues, running backs go in the 1st round. Even though it doesn't make as much sense to have a million running backs go in the 1st round of full PPR, a lot of people are stuck in their ancient ways of thinking. So our team right now, through 7 rounds, Lamar Jackson, Bijan Robinson, James Cook, Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith, and Darren Waller. Bye week number 13 might be a little bit tough because we are missing Waller, Adams, Cook, and Lamar Jackson that week. But guess what? I don't worry about bye weeks. It's going to sting maybe by the time we get to week number 13, but this team could look drastically different by the time we get to week 13. Injuries happen. There's going to be waiver wire players you pick up that turn into guys that need to be in your lineup, right? I like James Cook right now. James Cook might not even be on our team by week 13, right? And some other running back we picked up off the waiver wire might be in our lineup. So looking at the board, best players available, Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson. I think a lot of people are going to start getting a little more nervous on Deontay Johnson because George Pickens is looking like the second coming of Randy Moss in preseason. Deontay Johnson's looked good as well. Haven't really really seen him drop too many passes, which is definitely a positive. Kenny Pickett is slicing and dicing his way through the defense like he's playing Fruit Ninja. If Deontay Johnson was not available at that spot, though, because it says that we got a value pick there, probably would have went with Michael Pittman or Jahan Dotson. Michael Pittman went down tonight, but it didn't appear to be anything serious because he came back into the game after, or last night, I guess, because I'm recording it the night before. You get what I mean. After Deontay Johnson, Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, Anthony Richardson, Dalvin Cook, Jahan Dotson, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman, and Hollywood Brown. I love Anthony Richardson as much as the next guy, but in a one quarterback redraft league, if you draft Anthony Richardson in the 7th round, that's a little crazy to me. I get the rushing upside's huge. I like a lot of the players on this offense. I actually think he's a decent wide receiver core. But the problem is, when you draft Anthony Richardson, are you really going to throw Anthony Richardson out to the Wolves week 1 for your fantasy football team, right? Week 1, first game of his career. Are you playing him? Some people might say yes. They might have no fear at all. But I would fear, and I'm an Anthony Richardson truther. I would be nervous to play him week 1. So now you're pigeonholing yourself into drafting a second quarterback. And it's fine when Anthony Richardson is your second quarterback, but when he's your first quarterback and you have to come back in the 9th round and potentially take a Daniel Jones type, or maybe things come back around and your league mates go rogue and draft more quarterbacks, and then you come back on the board and your 2 quarterbacks end up being Russell Wilson and Anthony Richardson, that isn't very ideal. Again, I'm not poo-pooing Anthony Richardson, but what I will tell you is in a redraft league, if you're playing him week 1, you definitely have a pair of cojones on you. You have some balls, because I would not want to do that, and I love Anthony Richardson. So we're back up on the clock here based upon the fact that James Cook is our running back too. We are going to draft another running back here. If you want safety, you can go with either one of these Commanders guys. The safer option is probably Brian Robinson. You know how much volume he's going to be seeing week in and week out, whereas Antonio Gibson's a little bit more of an outlier, going to be getting a lot more targets. I normally chase targets, but this is a half PPR league, which does move things a little bit closer between Gibson and Robinson. Like 99% of drafts, we take Antonio Gibson. So this time we are going to go with Brian Robinson. Normally, I'd like to take him closer to the 9th or the 10th round, but this has been a very running back heavy room, and I don't want to get buried by the fact that I was going to come back in the 9th round. And based upon how things would look, Jamal Williams would be our RB3, who's definitely a much better running back for, like, once you get into this range, and if these are guys you kind of have to start week in, week out, it does feel a little bit gross. That's why a lot of the time when we do these hero running back drafts, which is what we did this time, right? We drafted Bijan in the 1st, and then we waited a hot minute to draft our next running back all the way until the 6th round. You want to load up on these guys because, again, while I like Jamal Williams as much as the next guy, he's a guy that you need to be cycling into your lineup, right? He's not a guy that you want stagnant in your roster. And I apologize if you could hear that. I tapped my desk a little bit too hard after we went with Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, George Pickens, Jordan Addison Ray, Zach Charbonnet, Jackson Smith in the Jigba, Gabe Davis, 49ers defense, Rashad with 2 A's, Penny, Michael Thomas, Cortland Sutton, Treylon Burks, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, as well as Samaje P. Ryan. Looking at the receivers available, I definitely think I want to get a piece of this wide receiver tier here. But the thing is, will another running back come back to us that I like? Because Jamal Williams, you can actually start week 1 because Alvin Kamara is gone. All these other guys, you don't really want to be starting in week number 1. So I think our best bet here would probably just be go with Jamal Williams. Now, it's going to hurt when Bateman and all these guys go, but there are so many wide receivers that I like late that I feel like I can go hammer time on, whereas I feel like the running backs that come back to us wouldn't have been as fruitful. But of course, I take that bet, and only 2 running backs go and a gazillion wide receivers go. After Jamal Williams, Elijah Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster, Sky with 2 Ys more, Kenneth Gainwell, Romeo Dobbs, Devin 2 Chains, Jacoby Myers, as well as Rashad Master Bateman, which is kind of interesting because these 2 teams have pretty suspect running back rooms, right? Breece Hall and David Montgomery, that's pretty suspect, right? Kenneth Walker, Rashad White, Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb's obviously great, but Walker, White, That's a little bit suspect. Sounds like Walter White, the guy from Breaking Bad. So we're up on the clock here, and we got shafted a little bit, but it is what it is. Ultimately, we drafted Lamar early, so we don't need another quarterback. We drafted Waller early, so we're not drafting another tight end, so we can just go on all wide receivers and running backs here. We're going to go wide receiver. Kadarius Toney, I can't stand him. We are not taking him here. We're going to take Nico Collins, who could end up being the wide receiver 1 on this Houston Texans team. I understand the Houston Texans aren't going to be all that great, but it doesn't take a crazy thought in your brain, right, to figure out that CJ Stroud is a lot better than Davis Mills, and Nico Collins had some solid games with Davis Mills, so what could he do if he has an actually solid quarterback? Now, obviously, there's negatives to Nico Collins. They have John Mechie, they have Dalton Schultz, but I feel like Nico Collins will end up as the wide receiver 1. After Nico Collins, Kadarius Toney, Jerick McKinnon, Allen Lazard, Damian Harris, Odell Beckham Jr., Philadelphia Eagles, Ezekiel Elliott, Elijah Mitchell, Raheem Mostert, Adam Thielen, Jameson Williams, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, and Tyler Algier. Back up on the clock here. It is suggesting us to draft Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson also dealing with injury. I think he's going to be fine. The Dolphins running back room just has all the guys that are always banged up. Besides A-Chain. I don't know too much about his college injury history. I don't think he's had that many. But Mostert and Jeff Wilson, like if you look up injury-prone running back, a picture of both of those bastards would end up showing up. So, again, I think the Dolphins will be fine entering the season as a Dolphins fan with Wilson, Mostert, and A-Chain. But as someone who really kind of wants that elite running back, having Jonathan Taylor would be sick. But obviously, that would completely catapult Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert just off of the island, right? Send them directly into the fucking ocean because unless one of those guys gets traded to the Colts, their fantasy value has plummeted to the deep depths of the earth. So we are up on the clock here. Tyler Boyd is one of the funniest picks in fantasy football because you know what Tyler Boyd is. He's the wide receiver 3 in a great offense. It takes Jamar or T. Higgins to get hurt for Tyler Boyd to be valuable. But once that happens, Tyler Boyd is very valuable. The question is, how do you perceive that value? Do you think it's fine to have a receiver that's probably just stuck on your bench all the time, but has big upside if something happens? Do you really want that super safe guy? Because even when Chase and Higgins are playing, Boyd gives you some safe points. But for me, when you get this deep into the draft, you're ripping the Band-Aid off, right? You're not being as safe. You're taking a lot more risks. So that's why I don't typically take Tyler Boyd. DJ Chark ended up getting hurt. That sucks. Minor hamstring injury. Terrace Marshall also hurt. Like, the wide receiver 1 of Adam Thielen is hilarious, but it might actually work. I've definitely been far from an Adam Thielen guy this offseason, but Adam Thielen might just see a ridiculous amount of targets. Did Adam Thielen already come off the board yet? I don't think so. No, he did at the 11:03. I don't like picking him because he's getting older. Bryce Young should be decent. I don't know. I just feel like the other receivers are so much more interesting. But there is a simulation of this season where the season ends, and then we just see that Adam Thielen has like 150 targets. Rondale Moore gets a little bit more interesting now that Joshua Dobbs has been traded there. When it was going to be Colt McCoy, Colt 45 and 2 zigzags, because maybe that's all we need. Or Clayton Looney Tunes. Rondale Moore was a little gross. But now with Joshua Dobbs, I understand Joshua Dobbs isn't fucking Kyler Murray, but it's definitely better than what they had there. After we went ahead and drafted Rondale Moore, we see Pat Freiermuth, Tyler, yeah, Boyd, Darnell, here comes the Mooney, Dalton Schultz, Sam Laporta, Geno Smith, David Njoku, and Jeff Wilson. Anyone watch his 90-Day Fiance, shout out to the boy Geno, the Gringo Bonito, who also is a chronic masturbator. Shout out to Los Polos TV as well. So we're back up on the clock here, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers. I'm going to want to get another running back in this range. Jaylen Warren continues to impress. Continues to look good in these preseason games. Of course, they don't have the recent news of how he fucking actually performed in preseason, because why would that be important? Let's just show a report from 12 fucking days ago, Fantasy Pros. But at the end of the day, he has been looking pretty good. The problem is, we all know deep down, Matt Canada, and Mike Tomlin are going to do that. What is that from Naruto? I don't even know. Where they go, and they connect their fingers together. Or is that Dragon Ball Z? It might be Dragon Ball Z. Any of you anime guys might end up shitting on me there. It's Dragon Ball Z 100%, not Naruto, where they go, wha-pow, when they do that thing together, right? They combine to create a force that is to be reckoned with that will not give Jaylen Warren enough touches. Jaylen Warren wipes his ass with Najee Harris, but it doesn't matter because he's not going to get enough touches. So we're going to go Tank Bigsby, who I think will see a legitimate amount of touches in Jacksonville, even with Travis Etienne healthy. Lots of talk about Donta Foreman potentially getting snipped, getting cut, getting that vasectomy by the Chicago Bears, which makes Roschon Johnson a lot more interesting. Again, we'll see what happens. Training camp is now over for a majority of teams. All we got is the final preseason games, and then it's practice time. So crazy how quickly the season comes back to us. Felt like just a couple days ago, it was July. It felt like football was so far away. It felt like you were just getting blue balls from seeing the OTA clips. But now it's starting to get really, really close. After Tank Bigsby, Jaylen Warren, Daniel Jones, Devin Singletary, Dallas Cowboys defense, Dalton Kincaid, Jalen Hyatt, Michael Gallup, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Donta Foreman, Roschon Johnson, Kendra Miller, Chuba Hubbard, Gus Edwards, and DJ Chark, baby Chark. It is suggesting that we go with a tight end here, but we ain't doing that. We ain't drafting Chig. We don't need Kirk O'Chains, Aaron Rodgers. We just need another receiver. You could go running back here, but Josh Jacobs, I don't think is holding out, so Zamir White's value is kind of Tajay Spears, these are talented handcuffs, but not for me here. Leonard Fournette maybe is the only guy that actually makes sense, because I think Leonard Fournette, if nothing happens with Jonathan Taylor and he just holds out, or if Jonathan Taylor gets traded, and then if the Dolphins trade for him, they don't send a running back there, then Leonard Fournette could end up getting added and just be the workhorse running back in Indianapolis. We are going to go wide receiver here, though, and we are going to go with Jonathan Mingo. Get that shot on that injured Carolina Panthers team. Maybe in his rookie year, Jonathan Mingo can become the the wide receiver numero uno in terms of targets in that Panthers offense. First, when we go kicker, we are going to go with Harrison Bucker, the fucker, and then we are going to go with the kicker. But first, we already got a kicker. Then we got to go with our defense. But first, we have to recap our picks. And I really do hope that earlier on in the video, I wasn't saying Le'Veon Bell instead of the name that I was actually trying to say, which was Dalvin Cook. But I know 100% I messed that up for some reason. Dalvin Cook, Le'Veon Bell just lives rent-free in my mind because of when he did hold out that one year. That picture of him riding the jet ski in Miami is so fucking funny. So after we went ahead and selected Jonathan Mingo, we saw Jerome Fode, Tajay Spears, Cordell Patterson, and Russell Wilson. Bunch of kickers, bunch of defenses, Rashee Rice, DPJ, and KJ Osborne. So for defenses, you guys are going to see very soon my must-draft defenses video talking about the art of streaming defenses. Want to be streaming defense, right? Doesn't matter how you think of the defense. You want a defense playing a not-so-hot opponent in week number 1. We are going to go with the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders up against Joshua Dobbs or Colt 45, McCoy, and the Arizona Cardinals. That is going to be a great defense to stream. They're going to be a part of that video. So we got a B- here, but they're playing bitches be tripping. This is an A+ team. Quarterback Lamar Jackson, running backs Bijan Robinson and James Cook. Wide receivers are Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith. Our tight end is Darren Waller. Our flex is Deontay Johnson. Defense and kicker don't really matter, but they're the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders and Harrison Bucker. Bench is comprised of Brian Robinson, Jamal Williams, Nico Collins, Rondell Moore, Tank Bigsby, and Jonathan Taylor. So let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought about this team. Now again, a big reason why you do mock drafts is to do things differently. I talked about how, hey, normally in the first 5 rounds, I'm not taking a quarterback and a tight end in a 12-team league. In a 10-team league, because the positional advantages are a lot more important, every team stacked, I am more likely to do it. But in a 12-team league, probably not. But this is why you experiment, you do different positions. It's not just missionary all the time here. We got to switch things up, switching it up, smashing around the dresser. So, thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button down below. Check out one of the videos on your screen right now as well. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great video later today. Have a good one. As always, good.